If I do nothing at all. And Liang shrugged, pouting as he said, of course I can't prove it to you. I'm trying my best to stay alive, but I don't know if I'll succeed. His tone was calm and sincere, causing Li Xiaoxin to ease off the accelerator and glance sideways at him with a questioning look. You think it's strange, right? And Liang asked. Yes, very strange. Do you believe me? I do. How can you believe something so absurd? And Liang sounded even more agitated than Li Xiaoxin. I don't know. When I look into your eyes, I just believe you. Li Xiaoxin kept her eyes on the road as she shifted gears and made a turn, pulling up halfway down the slope on 42nd Street. They were in Midtown Manhattan. Upslope lay the bustling commercial district, downslope flowed the Hudson River, beside which stood the Chinese consulate, just 2 blocks from where they'd stopped. Li Xiaoxin looked up at the building where Anlong lived and said, this place is really nice. Definitely not cheap. Heh, it's been in the family for generations. Your car isn't exactly cheap either. This car belongs to Danny. I only use it for work. After hours I drive my own. Li Xiaoxin swept her long straight hair back with one hand, then turned to look at Anlong before glancing up at the surrounding rooftops, as if waiting for him to say something more. Would you like to have dinner together tonight? Li Xiaoxin smiled. Is this a date? Anlong scratched his head looking embarrassed. I hope so, but if you're busy, we could always, no it's fine, come pick me up at 8 tonight. Will you still be wearing that bulletproof vest? I won't start wearing it until tomorrow afternoon. Don't you like the style? An Liang was clearly joking. Bulletproof vests were never designed for looks, but Li Xiaoxin indulged his humor with an angelic smile. I prefer something with more presence, like football padding. That looks great. I could even add a football helmet. Yeah, way better than a bike helmet. An Liang suddenly realized that even while on the run, image mattered. Today's outfit had been utterly inappropriate for any real occasion. Tomorrow he absolutely needed to try out a full football uniform. The thought of An Liang in football gear made Li Xiaoxin laugh. Now I'm really curious what you'd look like in that. Can I see it? Her easy manner did not surprise An Liang. A man with no luck in love and no experience chasing women could still read a woman's feelings. He could tell Li Xiaoxin did not dislike him. In these 30 days hanging under the shadow of death, having someone like her to care about felt like a blessing. They exchanged numbers and settled on a time and place. As An Liang watched the Bugatti fly off down 42nd Street like a gust of wind, his will to survive swelled to its peak. Clenching his fists, he gritted his teeth and swore at a lamppost. 29 days left, I'll make it through. Alexander Woe. Outside his apartment building stood a tall, elderly white man with silver hair, dressed in a doorman's uniform. He usually sat in the small lobby beside the entrance, but had already seen An Liang and was now standing respectfully by the door, waiting patiently for him to finish talking with the beautiful woman and come inside. The old man held the door open. An Liang pulled a dollar bill from his wallet and slipped it into the man's breast pocket. Good afternoon, sir, the doorman said. Thank you, Ian. You know, museums and parks in New York are free, but the moment I get home, I have to pay you an entrance fee. Ian gave an elegant smile. Indeed, sir, the residents here have always done this. Your parents and grandparents did the same. Even when leaving the building? Ian's smile grew even more refined, like a proper British butler. Thank you very much. Is there anything else I can assist you with? An Liang was in a strange mood today, both terrible and wonderful, still riding the wave of excitement from his conversation with Li Xiaoxian. He challenged Ian playfully. My grandparents only gave 10 cents. That was during the Great Depression. Ian replied with quick wit and courage, clearly sharp enough to safeguard every resident in the building. Just then, a stirring symphony blared from outside. Grand and dramatic, the music filled the air. An Liang and Ian turned to see an ice cream truck parked right in front of the building. It was a small van topped with a giant ice cream cone model. When its side panels opened, they became service windows. These trucks were common. They appeared at tourist spots or drifted slowly down any street, playing cheerful tinkling tunes to let children know the friendly ice cream man had arrived. But An Liang had never seen an ice cream truck blasting orchestral music. The kids nearby were terrified, and even An Liang and Ian stood frozen, mouths agape, staring at the bizarre sight. A grayish-black dog leapt out first, tethered to a leash. An Liang knew nothing about dogs, and couldn't identify the breed. Then a young nun hopped down, carrying a duffel bag. The moment Ian saw her, his face softened into a warm, generous smile. An Liang felt oddly uncomfortable. Why couldn't Ian ever smile like that at him? The nun was his younger sister, An Jing. She had the delicate features of an Eastern beauty, with large clear brown eyes like tranquil lake water. Her nun's habit was black with emerald green shoulder tabs, and though her figure was hidden beneath the flowing robes, the way the fabric moved suggested a slender, petite frame like a middle school girl just beginning to blossom. It seemed to be a family trait, and women never grew very tall. And Jing waved at An Liang, who stepped back out onto the street. Let me introduce you, she said. This is my brother, An Liang. And this is my friend, he's Lu Zongtang. An Liang frowned slightly at his sister, then looked up toward the driver's seat of the ice cream truck. A Chinese man with a full beard nodded at him, turned off the symphony, and extended a hand but made no move to get out of the vehicle. An Liang shook his hand and asked bluntly, You did time and just got out, didn't you? Lu Zongtang appeared about the same age as An Liang. He had silkworm eyebrows and phoenix eyes. The upper half of his face was an exact match for the statue of Guan Yu enshrined in temples. His thick, Zhang Fei-style beard was far more impressive than Liang's sparse chin fuzz. His whole demeanor radiated calmness and worldly wisdom, yet his fate was betrayed by his narrow space between the brows. His silkworm eyebrows grew inward, piercing the yin-tang point, a classic sign of legal trouble in midlife. If he wasn't currently under sentence, he must have only just been released. Lu Zhongtang listened to him, looked at Liang with solemn authority, and shot back. I have just been released. I've already waded through the clouds to see the moon. But you, Brother N, are right in the middle of your calamity. Your path ahead is dark and uncertain. Liang immediately turned to Jing and hissed under his breath. Was it you who told him? Why are you blabbing my business all over the place? Jing clasped her hands together in front of her chest, lifted her head, blinked innocently at Liang, and said calmly, "O son of man, do not let your mouth cause you to sin." It was a line straight from the Bible, God's own words, and Jing could quote it off the cuff like second nature. Clearly, those years in the convent hadn't been wasted. At the very least, she'd mastered the art of moral argument. Lu Zhongtang said, "Sister Jing didn't tell me anything. She just asked me to come see if I could help you out. The black aura on your face has already surged from your nose past your yin-tang point. You won't escape the life or death threshold within 30 days. Thanks so much, Master Ice Cream." Liang snapped. "I can handle myself just fine. I've even bought my own urn already, so don't worry about me. If you've got something to say, wait till I'm dead and visit my grave. Say it then. Goodbye forever. This brother of yours. Don't call me brother, I'm not in the triads. If you're so talented, don't waste your gifts. Go back to selling ice cream and fortune-telling." Liu Zhongtang cut him off firmly. "You can't say that. For Chinese folks in New York, selling ice cream is real skill. That industry's been monopolized by Italians for ages. Chinese people can't even get a foot in the door." Liang did not want to keep talking to Liu Zhongtang. He turned to Jing and said, "Don't bring gangsters here again. Not even gangsters who sell ice cream." Then he stormed back to the apartment entrance and stood there waiting for her. After exchanging a few words with Lu Zhongtang, Jing led her little dog inside. She greeted Ian warmly with a kiss on the cheek, exchanged pleasantries, then followed Liang into their home. Their apartment occupied the entire first floor, with large floor-to-ceiling windows facing an inner courtyard garden. The interior was spacious and lofty. The ceiling stretched 2 stories high, hung with all sorts of exercise equipment, making it look more like a small gymnastics studio. This had been their family's design for over a century, ideal for vigorous training and cultivation. Their ancestors had chosen the ground floor for another crucial reason. It came with a massive basement. As soon as Liang entered his room, he tossed down his things, turned on the computer to look up football pads online, and kept bickering with Jing through the open door while the little dog sniffed its way around the house. "What's this dog's name? Why does it have such a huge mustache? Looks just like that Lu Guanzhang guy." Jing dashed around the mini-gym, filling a bowl with water and pouring out some kibble for the dog. After thoroughly sniffing every corner of the house, the pup obediently settled down beside Liang, tilting its head curiously and quietly watching him. "Why do you keep calling him Lu Guanzhang? His name is Lu Zhongtang," Jing said. "His upper face looks like Guan Yu, his lower face like Zhang Fei, and he talks like Liu Bei if that's not Lu Guanzhang. What is? He's obviously from a gang. Are you serious? You went to prison yourself? Fine, but bringing convicts home? If Sister Yun finds out, she'll be furious." Unfazed, Jing once again spoke as if channeling the Holy Spirit. "Oh, Jesus said it is not the healthy who need a doctor but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous but sinners. As a nun, I must go where redemption is most needed." Liang was nearly driven mad, but Jesus wasn't wrong. Wasn't that exactly what a Feng Shui master did too? Swallowing his frustration, he muttered, "I was just asking about the dog. Why does it have such a big mustache? Did someone trim it like that? This breed is called Schnauzer. They all look like this." She was trained by Lu Zhongtang, and now that her training's complete, he's handing her over to me to take back to the convent. "Cuckoo, bark." Jing quickly gave Cuckoo the command. The dog immediately let out a sharp, ringing bark that made Liang's ears ring. All right, don't make it bark. When are you leaving?" "I took leave from Mother Perrin. I won't go back until next month. Sister Yun said I should stay and help you through this month." "Poofed. Like I need your help. With you here I'll die even faster." Liang knew for sure Lu Zhongtang must be one of the convicts reformed by the convent, and this dog was clearly a product of the collaboration between the Society of the Holy Spirit and the prison system. For years, Jing's order had run the prison pet partnership program. They'd rescue stray dogs from the streets, nurse them back to health, then have nun-pet trainers bring them into prisons to bond with inmates. The prisoners would learn to become pet trainers themselves, and once trained, these dogs could assist people with disabilities. This served 3 purposes at once. It helped inmates reconnect with their humanity, gave them marketable skills and certifications for employment after release, and provided purpose for stray dogs, reducing government euthanasia rates. What began as a humble, even mocked rehabilitation effort soon became the most successful prisoner reform program in U.S. history. Inmates who bonded with these dogs had a 0 recidivism rate within 3 years of release. Liang knew his sister all too well. She'd been wildly mischievous since childhood, overflowing with energy, impulsive, constantly causing trouble at school and on the streets. That's why their parents sent her early to a Catholic school and later forced her into the novitiate, aiming for her to become a nun. Their mother, and Yun, was a respected elder in New York's metaphysical circles, known in Chinatown as the Living Guanyin. From the moment Liang was born, she'd calculated his fate. His chart showed excessive yin earth seal, overwhelming his weak self, turning it into a malefic influence. When he reached his mid-30s and entered the waterlock period, he'd face a life-threatening disaster. During this critical time, having his mother nearby would worsen his fate, while support from his sister representing the rob-wealth relationship in his chart was essential. So Yun instructed both children to call her sister Yun from childhood, reducing the oppressive seal star influence from their mother in Liang's destiny. She told them it was just a local custom from their hometown, and indeed in parts of coastal Guangdong, some families do address mothers as Jay. After arranging everything, she left New York to return to China, searching for dragon veins and auspicious sites while touring the country, and arranged for Jing to take leave from the Society of the Holy Spirit to return and help her brother survive his life or death trial. And Liang knew his sister too well. She had the face of an angel but the soul of a demon. Don't let that demure holy nun's habit fool you. You never knew what she'd do next. One wrong move, and you might just end up dead by her hand. And Jing finished arranging her room and walked over to Liang's door, gripping the doorknob as she spoke. Lu Zhongtang is a Feng Shui master. I met him in prison. He has enough skill to help you, and I've already calculated his birth chart. He's your destined benefactor. With one benefactor and one sister helping you, you won't die. How exactly do you plan to help? Every day I have to run toward the auspicious direction. Are you going to follow me around in an ice cream truck? Today, during the hour of Psi, I ran out and got hit by a car, took a bullet. And Liang lifted the bulletproof vest at his feet to show the gunshot wound. And I also got zapped by 300,000 volts of high-voltage electricity. Are you planning to take a hit for me tomorrow or something? Forget it. You being near me just makes me die faster. I understand that you can balance my body, I appreciate it, but don't follow me around, just stay home and play with the dog. Your holy aura radiating from the house is already plenty helpful. The Lord says, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. Those who wield stun batons will eventually be electrocuted. And Jing had barely recited 2 lines of Jesus' teachings before Liang snapped back furiously. Is my stun baton really more dangerous than the 2 automatic pistols you're hiding under your habit? How many times has Sister Yun told you not to carry guns on the street? Have you ever listened? I guarantee you're armed right now. At the mention of guns, the Holy Spirit instantly vacated the nun. And Jing grinned mischievously. They're licensed, perfectly legal in the US. Anyway, I'm staying home with you this month. I'm heading down to the basement to play. Haven't played in ages. Hee hee. With that, she dashed off toward the basement. And Liang shouted after her retreating figure. I finally went on a date with my girlfriend tonight. If you follow us, I'll electrocute you before I die. And Jing lifted her habit as she ran down into the basement. The lights were always on down there, casting a soft glow. Every wall was covered in photographs, many of them century-old scenes, like a miniature visual history of the modern world. The photos showed landscapes from all over the globe across different eras, along with numerous family portraits and records of their ancestors' deeds, from the late Qing dynasty through the War of Resistance against Japan. It was clear at a glance that members of this family had repeatedly stood at pivotal moments in history. Though the original photos were carefully preserved elsewhere, these enlarged reproductions still carried the weight and brilliance of bygone years. She passed through several corridors and small storage rooms until she reached an unassuming door. Pushing it open, she stepped inside. The room was only about 40 square meters. A large cross stood in the center, flanked by walls lined with family group photos. Beneath them, a long table displayed heirlooms once used by ancestors. This was the Yin family's eternal shrine and sacred ground. She knelt first to pray to God, then greeted all her grandparents respectfully. Rising, she walked to the table nearest the cross. This section belonged to her great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother. From older relatives, and Jing had learned they'd once used a now-lost imperial Feng Shui technique to sever the Qing dynasty's dragon vein to avoid retaliation from Qing descendants. However, this deed remained the family's deepest secret. On the wall hung a remarkably well-preserved 12-inch black and white photo, a tall, handsome, middle-aged white man standing beside a petite, delicate Chinese girl. Both wore Western attire, and the girl held a lace parasol with theatrical seriousness, eyes wide open, an almost comical expression. And Jing adored them. She believed she resembled her great-great-grandmother most. Beneath their photo, mounted horizontally against the wall, lay a dark, lusterless, straight-bladed katana engraved with the characters Wu Ming, nameless. In front of it rested 2 gleaming long-barreled revolvers, naval-issue antiques from 150 years ago, meticulously maintained and fully functional if needed. And Jing had heard every ancestor's story since childhood. She knew these revolvers were her great-great-grandparents' constant companions and tokens of their love. What puzzled her was the mysterious Japanese ninja blade. Where had it come from? Surely its steel held secrets. Suddenly, and Jing whipped out 2 massive Italian Beretta M.Joyar automatic pistols from beneath her habit and spun around, aiming at the doorway. No one was there. She was merely testing whether her draw was still sharp. Ever since childhood, she and her brother had been taught that marksmanship was a family tradition, and they'd had ample opportunity to practice. Shooting as a sport naturally sparked interest even in girls, so firearms had become their lifelong toys. Turning back, she held her 2 M92s beside the table, placing them next to the antique revolvers for comparison. 4 guns, separated by 150 years, now met in this sacred space, a strangely moving sight. She could easily imagine that, a century from now, her own photo, wearing a nun's habit, would hang here, with these two pistols mounted beneath it. The arrangement would be delightfully absurd. Unfortunately, by seniority, her modern pistols couldn't stand beside the grand old revolvers, but if they could, the four side by side would make a perfect ensemble. Gently closing the door behind her, and Jing jogged toward the basement's final small iron door. She entered a few digits on the keypad, and the door slid open automatically, revealing a dimly lit chamber. Her fingers found a control panel on the wall with practiced ease. She adjusted a few knobs, then drew her twin pistols and leapt soundlessly into the darkness. This was a training chamber modeled after the underground Luan Hall of Southern Shaolin Temple, upgraded over generations into a fully computerized combat simulator. In the dark, spherical targets began appearing randomly. From all directions, some glowing faintly, others emitting sounds. And Jing darted left and right, firing rapidly in every direction. Gunfire erupted throughout the basement. Outside the iron door, and Lang peered through a small window. Kuko had followed him down but fled back upstairs at the terrifying sound of gunfire. Inside, and Jing moved like a hunting leopard, leaping, striking, blazing through the flashing muzzle fire, while murmuring under her breath, "I saw under the sun that in the place of justice there is wickedness, in the place of righteousness there is injustice. God will judge both the righteous and the wicked, for every matter and every deed has its appointed time before him. Thus God shows mankind that they are no better than beasts. For humans have no advantage over animals, all is vanity. From dust they come and to dust they return." After watching for a while, and Liang shut the small window and turned back toward the first floor, muttering to himself, "Paranoid delusional disorder. Hopeless." Beneath the fading crimson of sunset, the Atlantic Ocean lay cold and still. Fishing boats and cruise ships returned slowly to Sheepshead Bay on the outskirts of New York, passing the very table whereon Liang and Li Xiaoxin had shared dinner. They were both dressed in light, casual clothes, sitting at Fisherman's Restaurant on one side of the pier, which offered outdoor seaside seating for diners. They'd just finished a delicious grilled fish fillet and cream of mushroom clam chowder, and were now sipping white wine with their fruit salad. Only a few fishing lamps glowed along the pier, stretching out over the water. Their dim yellow light bathed on Liang and Li Xiaoxin, giving their faces a rich texture, an almost irresistible urge to reach out and touch. And Liang's hand rested on the table, tapping idly along with the piano music playing in the restaurant, inching slowly toward Li Xiaoxin's slender fingers resting there. Li Xiaoxin held her glass in one hand, gazing out at the pitch-black sea, while Lang silently counted the distance. 2 centimeters, 1 centimeter, 5 millimeters. Why is this table so damn big? 4 millimeters, 3 millimeters. This isn't a table. It looks more like a truck tire. 2 millimeters, don't shake your hand. 1 millimeter. Liang. Ah! Startled by her sudden voice, and Lang jerked his hand back as if burned, snapping it onto his own wineglass. What is it? Is your whole family into Feng Shui? Some are, some aren't. If someone doesn't like it, they don't have to learn. Honestly, it's just a specialized skill like medicine. Nothing too special, haha. Though Li Xiaoxin had only asked one question. And Liang's answer was detailed and lengthy. I love Feng Shui, so I embraced it completely. I've never seen Feng Shui in action, Li Xiaoxin said with a smile, locking eyes with Liang. Her gaze sparkled with unspoken meaning, making him feel oddly flustered. She added, and I've never dated a Feng Shui master before. And Liang adjusted his posture slightly to appear more elegant, then dabbed the corner of his mouth delicately with his napkin and said, Feng Shui is like seeing a doctor. If you don't have any unsolvable problems, you don't need it. But our company does have something unsolvable. Wouldn't that mean Feng Shui can't fix it either? Li Xiaoxin seemed determined to bring up such a downer topic, yet every blunt word from her lips sounded to Liang like a question he was happy to answer patiently. Miss Li, may I call you by your first name? My friends call me Xiaoxin. Xiaoxin, almost everything that happens to people in this world has some connection to Feng Shui. It's just that my mind is incredibly muddled right now. I might have missed something. If we could find answers, I'd really like to see what Feng Shui is all about, how it affects life and death. Aren't you running from death yourself? Why not use Feng Shui? And Liang spread his hands and tilted his head. I'm using Feng Shui. My home is already set up with a 7-star lamp formation to support my life force. I calculate the most dangerous hour each day and flee toward the safest direction. Plus I'm wearing full body armor and have life insurance. I won't die that easily. If you do die, at least you won't lose money, as long as your life insurance policy is big enough. And Liang shrugged, conceding her point, then changed the subject. You left your parents very young, didn't you? Li Xiaoxin looked up, surprised, a puzzled smile playing on her lips. What? Your facial features tell me so. Your ear rims are thin, and the inner curves flare outward. That indicates weak ties to your parents and a difficult childhood. I was raised by adoptive parents. What else do you see? Resting her chin on her hands atop the table, she leaned forward, letting her champagne gold straight hair fall on either side of her face like presenting a delicate work of art for Liang to admire. And Liang mirrored her pose, propping his own chin on his hands, gazing at her tenderly. I see a tiny mole hidden in your eyebrow. Li Xiaoxin laughed. Good heavens, you can see that in this dim light? Yes. It means you love saving money and you have some unusual talents, deeply concealed. What kind of talents? I'll need to see you more often to figure that out. That sounds like a lot of trouble. Isn't there a faster way? There is. Could you tell me your birthday? That's a girl's secret. If you tell me your birthday, I can reveal your past and future and send you a birthday gift every year. His voice grew softer and softer. Li Xiaoxian leaned closer, as if straining to hear him. Slowly, they moved toward each other until they could feel each other's breath and warmth. In one swift motion, An Liang wrapped an arm around Li Xiaoxian's neck, kicked the annoying table into the sea with his foot, slid over to her seat, and cradled her sideways in his arms, striking the iconic pose from Gone with the Wind. He kissed her deeply on the lips. Her lips gradually relaxed, parting slowly. Her slick, warm tongue became the most delicious thing An Liang had ever tasted. The kiss lasted so long that dawn broke through the eastern seabed, painting the sky and earth in shades of orange and red. An Liang finally pulled back, took a deep breath, and said gravely, "I love you. Alexander, I love you too. Please, never leave me." Li Xiaoxian clung tightly to An Liang's neck. Forever, no matter what, An Liang pressed her head against his chest, letting her listen to his heartbeat and the resonance within his ribcage. Endless wheat fields stretched around them, lone tree shadows swaying as the haunting, heartfelt theme song My True Love from the movie played, bearing witness to their love. Ah! Li Xiaoxian let out a soft cry of pain and sat upright. An Liang jolted awake, eyes flying open. He saw Li Xiaoxian quickly pull back from a distance of just 1 millimeter because his cursed beard had jutted forward that exact millimeter and pricked her. Ugh! An Liang nearly cried. Why did he even grow this stupid beard? Ever since he'd grown it, his luck with women had vanished completely. His face scrunched up like a bitter melon as he watched Li Xiaoxian lift her wineglass between them, blocking both their chins. Winking one eye playfully at him, she said, "I think you look better without a beard." "Really? I'll shave it off the moment I get home. Will you look tomorrow?" "I'll also wear my football armor. Let's see together." Terrified that Li Xiaoxian might lose interest in his old look but also not care about his new one, and thus miss their chance to meet again, he anxiously waited for her to agree to see him tomorrow, or any other day would do. Li Xiaoxian burst out laughing. "Actually, you're not ugly now. Just wait until I get really impatient with it before shaving it off. By the way, would you like to come recheck the Feng Shui at our office? I can schedule a time for you." "Of course we should go. I'll get to the bottom of this. How about right now?" And Liang was suddenly full of energy. First, he couldn't let Li Xiaoxian look down on Feng Shui masters. Second, this was a perfect chance to spend more time with her. Now, Li Xiaoxian was surprised by his eagerness. She hesitated and said, "It's too late already. I'd like to get home early. You live in Manhattan too. We can cross back over the Brooklyn Bridge. Once we're off, we're right at Wall Street. Let's just take a quick look." Feng Shui inspections are ideally done once during the day and once at night. In ancient times, they'd even come back during the rain. Different times reveal different things. If I have to schedule another visit with Danny, it'll be a hassle. But you're the secretary, you've got the access code and keycard. We'll only need 15 minutes. And Liang wasn't as downcast as he'd been that afternoon. He was completely caught up in the moment, refusing to believe he couldn't uncover the Feng Shui root behind David's sudden death. Li Xiaoxian couldn't talk him out of it. So the two left the restaurant and climbed onto a high-powered green off-road motorcycle, speeding into Manhattan under the cover of night. Li Xiaoxian leaned against An Liang's back, her arms tightly wrapped around his waist as they raced along the highway skirting New York Bay. The Statue of Liberty slowly slid past them. Shouting over the roaring wind, she asked, "The wind on a motorcycle is terrible for your skin. Don't you have a car?" "I do, but you're supposed to ride a motorcycle on dates." "I like it when you hold me." "Jerk, what?" "Tomorrow we're taking a car." They soon arrived at 120 Wall Street. After parking the motorcycle by the curb, they headed straight upstairs. Ever since the terrorist attacks several years ago, New York City office buildings had tightened security. Everyone entering or exiting had to show ID and have their photo taken for the system, even at this late hour. They still had to follow protocol and get photographed before being allowed in. It was already past 10 at night. The building was deserted, except when they reached the 23rd floor. They saw a few desk lamps glowing through the glass doors, suggesting someone was working overtime. And Liang stepped aside to let Li Xiaoxian unlock the door and joked, "Your coworkers sure are hardworking, still here this late." Li Xiaoxian smiled and pressed the doorbell. "Yeah, otherwise how would this company grow so fast?" She then entered the passcode and swiped her card to open the electric door. Stepping inside, she called out, "Who's still working?" The reception area was spacious and empty. 3 tall white men in suits slowly emerged from the inner office, briefcases in hand. They gave Li Xiaoxian and An Liang polite smiles and said, "We're just leaving. Good night." They didn't stop walking, calmly heading toward the exit. With practiced ease, they entered the passcode and stepped out of the elevator lobby. An Liang and Li Xiaoxian watched them wait for the elevator, exchanging puzzled glances. Something felt very wrong. Suddenly, An Liang realized it was him. He'd been here that very afternoon. The office had been completely empty. After David's sudden death, Danny had given all staff an extended leave so he could figure out his next move. There shouldn't have been anyone here at all. How could there be people working overtime? He turned and whispered to Li Xiaoxian, "Do you know them?" "I just joined the company recently and mostly work in the executive office. I don't really know the people outside my department. But if they know the code, they must be from the company. Right? This is suspicious." Before Li Xiaoxian could finish explaining, An Liang rushed out of the elevator lobby and shouted, "Hey, wait a second, I need to ask you something." Just then, the elevator arrived. The doors opened and the 3 men immediately stepped inside. And Liang thought, if they're not guilty, why run? He sprinted toward the keypad, shouting over his shoulder. What's the exit code? Li Xiaoxin hurried after him. 28 crore. 45,74,093. It's wrong, it won't open, say it again. Seeing how tense Liang had become, Li Xiaoxin didn't bother repeating the 9-digit code. She ran to the keypad herself and quickly entered it. The door clicked open. They burst out of the elevator lobby and frantically pressed the call button, but the elevator had already shot down to the first floor. Liang jabs the elevator button, anxiously. Call Danny right away. I'll chase them. They must have parked nearby. I can catch them as soon as I get downstairs. Li Xiaoxin immediately dialed Danny's number, but only got voicemail. Still, she left a message describing the situation, regardless of when he might hear it. By the time they exited the building, Liang had already spotted a black Lincoln sedan pulling away from the curb. He sprinted toward his motorcycle and yelled to Li Xiaoxin, New York license plate were 4417 on that Lincoln. Call the police quick, thieves. Before the words even finished echoing, the green off-road motorcycle roared to life. Its powerful two-stroke engine screamed as Liang twisted the throttle hard, lifting the front wheel off the ground and launching the bike in pursuit of the fleeing Lincoln. Li Xiaoxin watched Liang vanish into the night, still dialing her phone. Then she noticed another black sedan speeding after him, the two large cars clearly planning to sandwich him between them. All three vehicles weaved recklessly along the FDR drive, darting between lanes like hockey players on asphalt, narrowly avoiding disaster. Liang quickly sensed the danger closing in from behind. He knew he stood no chance in a direct confrontation. His only option was to escape, but his pursuers had no intention of letting him get away. The rear sedan accelerated violently, aiming straight for the back wheel of his motorcycle. Liang didn't even need to look, he could feel the murderous intent radiating from behind. He twisted the throttle harder, surging forward just enough to dodge the impact, then swung his bike alongside the left rear corner of the lead car. The front sedan immediately eased off the gas slightly, slowing just enough to let Liang slip alongside its midsection, then abruptly veered left, forcing him off the road. With only two wheels and zero protection, Liang dared not risk a collision. He swerved sharply left, crossing into oncoming traffic. Driving against traffic was always dangerous, and with Liang's famously bad luck, it was no surprise a massive freight truck came barreling straight toward him. The truck driver, stunned to see a tiny motorcycle appear out of nowhere, panicked completely. He screamed and slammed every button within reach. The truck's headlights blazed on, the engine roared, and the air horn blared as it charged straight at Liang. Liang shrieked in terror, his heart pounding like it might burst, nearly driven mad by fear. There was no way to swerve back into his original lane. He gunned the engine, lifted the front wheel, and launched onto the sidewalk on the left. In a flash, he barely grazed past the oncoming truck, the impact shattering his taillight. The turbulence from the massive vehicle nearly threw him off the bike. He struggled to keep the motorcycle balanced, swerved onto the opposite sidewalk, and executed a flashy emergency brake drift spin, then sped off in the opposite direction from which he'd come. At the same time, he heard the sharp whoosh of bullets whizzing past his ears. Liang knew firearms well. He recognized the sound immediately as bullets fired from an MP5 submachine gun fitted with a silencer. But this kind of weapon was typically issued only to anti-terrorism units, usually used by the good guys against the bad guys. Now, why on earth were these justice guns shooting at him? If he got hit and died right here, people would probably assume he was a terrorist. He absolutely couldn't let himself get hit by those bullets. All thoughts of bravado vanished as Liang focused solely on escaping for his life. He gunned the engine and dove straight into the narrow streets of Chinatown. There were few pedestrians out at night, so his motorcycle slipped easily into the tight alleys, but two black sedans switched tactics from defense to offense, locking onto his trail and chasing him relentlessly. Bullets kept zipping past him. He passed right by the police station but didn't dare stop to call for help. If he slowed even slightly, a hail of gunfire would surely follow. Liang refused to die right outside a police station. It would be far too absurd, too much like a scene from The Godfather, definitely not the way he wanted to go. He tore from narrow Elizabeth Street into Little Italy. Every Chinese and Italian restaurant along the way had already closed for the night, and the empty streets gave his pursuers free rein to fire at will. Behind him, besides the roar of engines, he occasionally heard the distinctive clatter of plastic pellets hitting the pavement, the unmistakable sound of an MP5 firing. Despite his panic, Liang was secretly having the time of his life. What game could possibly top one where your very life was on the line? The cramped alleys of Chinatown were perfect for showing off his dirt bike's agility. For the first time in his life, he felt an exhilarating rush unlike anything before. He knew it was dangerous, knew it might one day get him killed, but it felt as if he'd finally unlocked some long-suppressed potential deep inside himself. He pushed his riding skills to the limit, even catching himself slowing down just enough to lure his pursuers closer. Oh no, I must be insane. Feels like I'm trying to get myself killed. Liang scolded himself sternly in his head, but his mouth let out a sharp, shrill whistle anyway. He launched the dirt bike over the roof of a parked sedan, burst into a small roadside park, wove through the landscaped pathways with rapid left-right leans, then swaggered his hips flamboyantly as he shot into another alley. The two black cars flanked the park from both sides, hot on his tail once more, turning the chase into what felt like a globally televised urban freestyle motocross event. Mott Street opened directly onto Canal Street, the main thoroughfare of Chinatown and a must-visit shopping strip for tourists. Liang still hadn't shaken his pursuers, and didn't want to enter such a wide open road so soon. Broad, clear sightlines offered zero advantage for escape. Just as he weighed his options, he spotted several fruit vendor pushcarts inexplicably blocking the upcoming intersection. No way, this is too perfect. Liang glanced again at high speed and saw that one of the carts even had a wooden plank leaning against it, ideal for launching his motorcycle into the air. Without hesitation, he rode up the makeshift ramp and shot out onto Canal Street like a wisp of smoke. Following the street sign, he turned right and heard two loud crashes echo behind him. Hehehehe. Liang grinned wickedly, twisted the throttle, and glided his motorcycle quietly into the shadowy depths of a Chinatown alley. He needed to find a hiding spot first and call Li Xiuqun. Behind him, the two black sedans had collided into a tangled mess. 7 or 8 men climbed out. They walked to the front of their wrecked vehicles and stared at the shattered fruit cart. The cart was packed with frozen Thai durians, and even more of the spiky fruits were scattered across the pavement. The front Lincoln already had one tire punctured by a durian husk. Durian shells resembled basketballs covered in spikes, and when flash frozen they turned into steel-hard landmine-like hazards. How could any car tire possibly survive rolling over them? Crushed durians now littered the street, releasing their famously pungent stench, a smell often compared to rotten chicken droppings. The big white men who'd stepped out of the cars cursed loudly while pinching their noses shut, furiously kicking aside the foul-smelling king of fruits. Liang turned into a side street, but hadn't yet found a place to hide when he suddenly saw an ice cream truck parked ahead under the dim glow of a street lamp. Standing around it were a dozen or so Chinese men, clearly from all walks of life, arms crossed smugly over their chests, grinning broadly as they blocked the narrow lane. Only then did Liang realize his earlier stroke of luck wasn't divine intervention. It was ice cream master Lu Zhongtong rallying Chinatown brothers to his aid. And now, unintentionally, he owed them a huge favor. He pulled his motorcycle up to the ice cream truck and tapped on the driver's window. "Hey, did you really think I couldn't handle this myself?" Lu Zhongtong stuck his head out of the window, a rolled cigarette dangling from his lips. Coolly, he turned to a young man beside him and said, "Ah Dong, take his bike and drive it around for a bit, lead those guys away." Then he looked back at Liang. "Brother, just hand him the keys. He's a great rider, nothing'll happen." Liang didn't particularly like Lu Zhongtong, but the man's words and actions weren't unpleasant, and he seemed to carry some weight in Chinatown. Judging by how ruthlessly his attackers had struck, Liang realized their goal was clearly to kill him and silence him permanently. That thought filled him with indignation. I haven't even figured out what's going on, and they're already trying to erase me. That's way too unfair. Even more urgently, he realized the person in greatest danger wasn't himself, it was Li Xiuqun. His own curiosity had dragged her into this mess. While he'd been chasing one car, another had tailed him, and there had clearly been a trap waiting near that building all along. If these villains were willing to kill him, how could they possibly spare Li Xiuqun? Ignoring Lu Zhongtong's words, he stepped aside and quickly dialed Li Xiuqun's number. She answered, saying the police had arrived shortly after he left. She was now upstairs in the office with officers, inventorying company belongings and giving her statement, and would head home once everything was done. They exchanged a few words before an officer asked for the phone and told Liang he needed to return to assist with the investigation. All Liang cared about was her safety. Cooperating with the police held zero interest for him. After briefly explaining the situation, he mumbled something about coming to the station tomorrow and hung up abruptly. Reassured that Li Xiuqun was safe, Liang handed his helmet to Ah Dong and pulled out a $20 bill. "Fill her up, keep the change." Lu Zhongtong turned to the group of Chinese men. "Fat Wei, tomorrow go pick up a whole truckload of premium durians from the fruit market. Charge it to my account. You guys hop in and head out first. I'll call you later. Thanks for your help." He then climbed out of the ice cream truck, tossed the keys to someone else, and watched as the group drove off. But instead of leaving, Lu Zhongtong gestured for Liang to follow him into a church at the corner of the street. Liang knew exactly what came next. Once they stepped inside, the next scene would undoubtedly feature his sister and Jing. How odd it would be if she didn't show up at a moment like this. The church was dimly lit, and Jing still wore her nun's habit and wimple. Standing in the center of the altar with a pure smile on her delicate oval face, waiting for Liang and Lu Zhongtong to approach. Suddenly she spread her arms wide, like a little bird about to take flight from behind the pulpit, and delivered heavenly instruction in a clear, ringing voice. "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what today may bring. Let others praise you, not your own mouth. Let strangers extol you, not your own lips." Liang rolled his eyes so hard it nearly hurt. But how could he snap back when God himself seemed to be speaking through his sister? Gritting his teeth, he stomped up to the altar and waved impatiently for Jing to come down. The moment her feet touched the floor, he fully intended to flick her right between the eyes. But Jing knew her brother too well. She could read his thoughts before they even formed. "So while God was still speaking through her lips," she added, "heaviness of stone, weight of sand, but a fool's anger is heavier than both." Liang covered his face and let out a theatrical sob, though no tears came. In a mock whiny voice he said, "Are you even Sister Yun's real daughter? Can you just speak human for once?" Seeing that she'd made her brother cry, Jing happily stepped down from the altar and patted his head. Don't cry, don't cry. Getting home safely, that's God's blessing." At that moment little Cuckoo popped out from under the pulpit and trotted over to Liang and Liu Zhongtang, wagging her tail enthusiastically. "You followed me. You brought a dog to stalk me." Liang finally lost it. He lunged forward, grabbed Jing by the neck, and shook her back and forth like a rag doll. How else would you know where I've been and where I'm going unless you set up some damn trap to catch me? This roughhousing had been their childhood way of expressing annoyance. And Jing let her head flop like a willow branch in the wind, her voice trembling as she gasped out, That's T2H help you or else you'd still be running for your L life. If you do that one more time, and Liang warned, finally releasing her, I won't hold back. Liu Zhongtong wisely stayed out of sibling squabbles. He waited until the two had finished before speaking calmly. It really was urgent. When Sister Jing called me, you were already cornered with nowhere to run. We couldn't find a better roadblock on such short notice. So we parked a few durian trucks to slow them down and give you cover. It's not about the durians. And Liang snapped, shoving his hands deep into his pockets. It's about privacy. Don't I have any rights left? Privacy is a luxury for peacetime, Liu Zhongtong replied evenly. Right now your death date is looming, and you've tangled yourself with some dangerous people. This is serious. Tell us what actually happened. Who even are you? And Liang turned to Jing, jabbing a finger at Liu Zhongtong. Even cops can't force me to answer if I don't feel like it. And Jing had already regained her serene composure. She gave Liu Zhongtong a gentle questioning glance, and only after he nodded did she explain to Liang. Liu Zhongtong is secretary of the Zhenghe Association. 5 years ago, he got into a gunfight with an Italian mob to protect Chinese street vendors from extortion. He served time but was released early for good behavior. During his parole, he needed a legitimate job to report to the authorities. To smooth things over with the Italians, the church helped broker a deal. The Italians even donated an ice cream truck as a goodwill gesture. Now Brother Liu sells ice cream by day and checks in weekly at the police station. And Liang scoffed. Oh, so you're the white paper fan of the Hongmen's Zhenghe Hall. What's there to report? The whole Chinatown precinct is packed with your Hongmen brothers anyway. Liu Zhongtong's expression remained earnest. The Hongmen is a lawful organization dedicated to protecting Chinese interests. Naturally, some Chinese officers are members, but that doesn't mean we bend the rules. I report every week without fail. Though unused to such solemnity, and Liang couldn't help but match Liu Zhongtong's tone. He straightened up and listened attentively. Brother, Liu Zhongtong continued, Sister Jing and I became close friends in prison. Because she cares deeply about you, she asked me to help you survive this death period. As a Feng Shui master yourself, you know that a person's life-threatening window is brief. If your fate isn't catastrophically bad, surviving it means better luck lies ahead. But during this critical phase, any sudden opportunity, no matter how tempting or profitable, could be a death trap. And Liang had been nodding along until the word sudden opportunity hit him. Instantly, Li Xiaoshan flashed into his mind. Could this ice cream vendor be jealous that he'd found a girlfriend who looked like a Hollywood A-lister? He narrowed his eyes. Ice cream man, what exactly are you trying to say? What are you thinking? Liu Zhongtong shot back. Calm, quick, and sharp. Li and Liang almost blurted out her name, but caught himself just in time. That was a classic instant hypnosis trick. This guy wasn't as simple as he seemed. Thank goodness Jing had said he was his destined benefactor. If he'd been a destined enemy instead, Liang would have been doomed. He took a breath and played it cool. I meant, which incident are you referring to? A lot's happened since my death period started. Jing sat sideways on a pew, cradling the sleeping Coco in her lap. Just tell us about the chase. What triggered it? Don't worry, we'll protect you. If anything happens to you, how am I supposed to face Sister Yun when I go home? Now that he knew Liu Zhongtong's background, and Liang's trust grew, he sat down and recounted the David Group incident from start to finish. But honestly, even as he spoke, it sounded like nonsense. Too many I don't knows and vague gaps. And Jing and Liu Zhongtong listened, utterly baffled. When he finished, Liu Zhongtong said gently, Brother, you told us everything except about your date with that girl. You expect me to talk about that? And Liang's eyes bulged like light bulbs. Wasn't love something sacred and private? Did he really have to share it with his sister and some ice cream selling ex-con? Liu Zhongtong leaned forward. Brother, I've analyzed your 8 characters. Your Daymaster is weak. Yet you have the killing and seal elements generating each other a clear upright structure. You're honest, competitive, but you constantly push beyond your limits. Some call it courage, others call it suicidal. Your chart shows no wealth element and your destiny drains money like a sieve. You earn plenty, but it slips through your fingers like mist. And though you had a touch of peach blossom luck, it ended completely after college. Since age 20 you've had no heaven-sent romance. And Liang stared down at the cross-patterned floor tiles, brow furrowed. Everyone in the Yin family could read fate. From the day he was born, his destiny had been the family's greatest worry. The wealth-draining part was manageable. He'd always donated a portion of his earnings to charity and funneled the rest into the family trust, never keeping assets in his own name. But the complete absence of romantic luck after 20? That was catastrophic. The Yin family was counting on him to carry on the bloodline. This problem gave Liang a headache too. In the 10 years since his student days, his mastery of metaphysics had greatly improved. Through his own experiences and those of countless clients, he had proven the existence of fate and the power of Feng Shui, becoming New York's top Feng Shui consultant. He could easily set up a peach blossom luck-enhancing Feng Shui arrangement to attract a girlfriend or even a wife, but he refused to do so. If one day the peach blossom layout were disrupted, the relationship born from Feng Shui would just as easily vanish because of Feng Shui. Love not rooted in genuine mutual affection always lacked sincerity and carried hidden calculation. And Liang didn't want to spend the rest of his life with a Feng Shui woman in a Feng Shui romance. So he chose instead to seek, wait, and even fail. But now death loomed before him. No one could guarantee he'd survive these next 29 days. At this moment, Lu Zhongtang, questioning the sudden fleeting romance appearing in his destiny, inevitably angered Liang. Lu Zhongtang saw Liang's mood clearly, but as a Feng Shui master himself, he had to speak the truth even if it wasn't what Liang wanted to hear. He continued, "During the most dangerous period of your life, especially when you're not under peach blossom luck, any woman who suddenly appears must be treated with extreme caution. Getting too close could bring disastrous consequences." Liang knew Lu Zhongtang spoke the truth, but it wasn't Lu Zhongtang facing death, it was him. If he died within this month, would he really be content knowing he'd lost this love at the very end, missing his last chance to truly love someone? He didn't blame Lu Zhongtang for speaking plainly, nor did he blame anyone else. He understood this was something sealed the moment he was born. He'd always lived cheerfully, forcing himself to stay optimistic as each day brought him closer to death. Even last month he'd gone about his work as if nothing were wrong. He treated these 30 days of impending doom like an exciting vacation, because otherwise overwhelming despair and fear would have shattered him. Truthfully, Liang was terrified of dying. Right now, he felt like a little child watching a nurse approach with a syringe. No matter how sweetly and kindly the nurse tried to coax him, the child knew that needle would hurt. He kept smiling simply because it made things easier for himself and for those around him, so they wouldn't have to share his fear. That's why he clung to his sense of humor, even though lately that humor felt more like a trembling mask over deep dread. Li Xiaoxin's appearance had given him tremendous strength and courage. He didn't know if he was the type to fall in love at first sight, but he trusted her instinctively as if they'd known each other in a past life. Maybe he just desperately needed someone to love right now and, if possible, to be loved in return. He said softly, "I'll handle all that. Thank you both. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to David Group. In the afternoon, I'll flee toward the northeast. You two figure out what to do. If I'm still alive, meet me in Flushing for Korean food." After speaking, Liang lowered his head wearily and slowly walked out of the church. "Brother, brother." Jing and Lu Zhongtang called out to him at the same time. Liang stopped and turned back. "What is it?" Lu Zhongtang politely gestured for Jing to speak first, but she insisted he go ahead. So Lu Zhongtang said, "You shouldn't drive or take the subway during your danger period. I'm your noble person star in destiny. If I drive for you, it'll offer significant protection. I'll go with you to David Group tomorrow." Liang recognized Lu Zhongtang's loyalty and sincerity. He walked over and extended his right hand. "Call me Alexander." "Heh, a Chinese guy calling himself Alexander. I'm about to die, humor me a little, okay? All right, I'll pick you up tomorrow." After shaking hands with Lu Zhongtang, Liang turned to Jing. "What were you going to say earlier?" Jing scrunched her eyes and scratched her headscarf. "I got carried away and wanted to say something, but now I've forgotten. Let's just go home together." As they stepped out of the church, Liang still couldn't shake his worry. He called Li Xiaoxin again, but her phone was already switched off. The next day, Liang had already arranged to meet Danny for another Feng Shui inspection at David Group. At 10 in the morning, the Yen siblings and Lu Zhongtang arrived at 23rd floor, 120 Wall Street. Cuckoo had also come along since she was undergoing command reinforcement training, and Jing seized every opportunity to expose her to different environments. Through the glass door, the office still appeared completely empty. After they rang the bell, the door opened automatically, and Li Xiaoxin came out to greet them. She wore a different professional suit today, a black mandarin collar ensemble with a distinctly Eastern flair, cut to perfectly hug her bust and waist, making her look both sensual and elegant. She clearly adored Koku, letting out a soft gasp of delight as she crouched down to stroke Koku's bushy beard and say hello.